It has been 50 years since the last time a human has set foot on the surface of the moon. Gene Cernan was the last person to walk on the moon during the Apollo 17 lunar mission. Why haven't we been back to the moon since? Will we go back to the moon? And is there actually any reason to go back? On September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy announced the plan for the United States of America to send a human to the moon before the end of the decade. This goal was to be met with a program called Apollo. Many vehicles were used to test out systems for the Apollo missions, which were to land on the moon. Firstly, an Apollo capsule was launched aboard a Little Joe 2 rocket to test the capsule's abort capabilities. The test went well, and the development of a larger rocket continued. Following, vehicles such as the Saturn I and Saturn 1B tested crucial hardware and became operational to begin flying payloads into orbit. But those vehicles didn't come close to the full vehicle, which was to send humans to the moon. The Saturn V rocket was a 3-stage, super heavy lift launch vehicle which was made to send the Apollo capsule and lander to the moon. To let you understand what it takes to get to the moon, I will go over the Saturn V rocket. The first stage of Saturn V was called the S-1C. It burned RP-1 and liquid oxygen. These propellants were sent into the 5 powerful F-1 engines which produced 7.9 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. This carried the 6.5 million pound vehicle into the sky. The 5 F-1 engines cut off in an event known as MECO. The stage then separated, and the second stage ignited. The second stage, or S2, held liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen in its tanks. It fed those propellants into the 5 J2 rocket engines placed at the bottom of the stage. These 5 engines carried the whole vehicle just short of orbital velocity. The S4B third stage supported a single J2 engine and was ignited after the second stage separated. This burn would only last around 2 minutes before shutting down the engine. This engine, however, would reignite around 1.5 hours later for the TLI, or translunar injection burn. This burn would last 7 minutes and bring the orbit of the vehicle to intercept the moon in just under 3 days. The Apollo CSM, or Command and Service Module, then separated, performed a 180-degree rotation, and then docked to the lunar lander. The CSM pulled the lander away from the third stage to begin the 3-day coast phase to the moon. Once they arrived at the moon, the Apollo CSM engine will then burn retrograde to allow the spacecraft to enter a lunar orbit. This was then followed by a lunar lander separation, and the lander would begin its descent down to the lunar surface. The mission would then be executed prior to the crew boarding onto the LEM and escaping from the moon. This would then dock back to the CSM module, which was still in lunar orbit, and then they would begin their journey home. Once they left lunar orbit, did their 3-day coast phase, and then separated the CSM, this left just the Apollo capsule. The capsule faced bottom down, and they re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. The parachutes deployed, and the capsule splashed down in the ocean. That was obviously a very quick summary of what the Apollo mission would look like, but that is how we got to the moon with Apollo and Saturn V. The reason NASA hasn't gone back to the moon since 1972 has been because of political risks. Getting to the moon is expensive, and the budget given to NASA each year by the government isn't able to support moon missions anymore. Another reason that the moon is very dangerous is that the lunar dust is so fine that it can get stuck in everything, such as solar panels, spacesuits, vehicles, computers, airlocks, and more. Also, humans landing on the moon requires a lot more resources and technology than robots landing on the moon. And now that technology has improved a lot, we are just sending robots to the moon to collect samples and test them on the moon. Well, if this is true, is there even a point of sending people back to the moon again? Well, the short answer is yes. This is because humans can do science experiments that robots cannot do. There's also just many more things to explore that can only be discovered by humans. There are actually multiple moon rockets under development at the moment. The one closest to launch is the SLS, or Space Launch System. Once launched, it will be the world's largest rocket to fly that is in operation. The vehicle is made up of a core stage with 2 strap-on solid rocket boosters and an interim cryogenic upper stage above the core stage. Placed atop the ICPS, or interim cryogenic upper stage, is the Orion crew capsule and abort tower. This is what will carry the crew during the launch. The SLS rocket is scheduled to launch on the uncrewed Artemis 1 mission on August 29, 2022 at 8:33 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That is under a month away. You'll be able to join us live on this channel for that exciting launch. Another moon rocket under development is SpaceX's Starship rocket. The Starship rocket, however, is to be talked about in another video.